Hey guys, check out these birch trees. You are totally going to create one of these. It's an introduction to our graphite unit, and I think you're really going to like it. Here are the materials you're going to need. Masking tape and pencils and an eraser. I like to use a 6B pencil and also an HB pencil, so those are a couple things you might want to grab. If you just have a number 2 pencil, that's actually also fine. I love cardboard, you know I do, and we are totally going to use that for this process. We are also going to use a little cotton scrap. Ours are already loaded with graphite powder, but it's nice to have extra graphite powder around as well. So to get started, you're going to think about where your birch tree is going to be. I'm just going to put mine right in the middle. You can get creative and do other things with your birch tree, but to get started, I think I'm going to make my birch tree 4 tapes wide, and I think that'll give me a nice surface to create my texture. So next, taking my cotton scrap, and I dipped it into my graphite powder, and what I'm doing is I'm creating the first hill. Now we know about perspective that things that are close to us are dark and low on the paper and clear, and the things that are further away are going to have a lighter value and be higher up on the paper. So those are some we're reviewing some of that work for these creations. So you can see that I am rubbing and rubbing and rubbing lots of back and forth into my graphite powder, but there's also a lot of graphite powder already on my cotton scrap. And I can lay down a really nice color field, you know, in a nice value range. So now what I'm doing is I'm adding a little more graphite. I'm sort of mimicking the idea of faraway trees, just these sort of scratchy little marks, and I might go over them again with my cotton scrap so that they don't just look like pencil lines. And I'm sort of attending to the close hills and then the medium hills, rubbing it in, making it look convincing. But it is far away, so it doesn't have to look like a perfect tree. It just has to give the idea of faraway trees. In this last hill, I'm not drawing trees at all. I'm just sort of rubbing out some highlights where I feel like sun might be on the hill, and that's something you can do too. What I'm doing here is I'm really trying to separate the sky from the hills. I don't want them to be the same value, so that little white line is like a little cheater line. I don't know what you want to think of it, but that helps me to really separate my sky from my faraway hill so that there's a real distinction. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on the rest of my hills, just like I said, a little highlight line. Maybe you consider it a little cheater line, like I'm really showing you that there's a difference here. But it's a little trick for the eye, and it really helps the viewer see what's happening. All right, I believe we are onto the sky. When I'm rubbing my sky, I want to keep my strokes in the same direction that wind might be traveling, you know, pretty much, you know, from side to side. I'm not doing a lot of swirly up and down ones. And I'm creating these puffy little clouds with an eraser. So I'm just erasing out where I think clouds go. Again, low clouds are skinny and pancakey near the horizon line, and as they get closer to you, they're sort of bigger and loftier and higher on the paper. So we can follow all those things we've already learned in previous projects. Well, I decided to put a cloud up there, guys, but guess what? I eventually ended up ignoring it. I didn't like it. That's okay. You can do that too. Graphite is very forgiving. All right, this next step is pretty fun, and it can be pretty fast. I'm just creating some close-up vegetation, like little weeds or little sort of like tall, grickly grass, and you could have a lot of fun with that and make all sorts of shapes. Next, with my HB pencil, which is not as dark as my 6B pencil, I am just sort of redefining the outlines of the clouds again so I can really play that trick on the viewer that there is a distinction between the clouds and the sky because the value is kind of close, and I just want to like literally draw a distinction between those things. So that's what's happening there. All right, time for the big reveal. Here's an interesting thing. You see that white paper right there? I'm going to show it to you. Okay. If that happens to your work, that's actually kind of cool. I mean, you don't want it to happen way too much, but little places where the paper pulls up is kind of cool. It's going to make a nice texture when we get to the bark texture of a birch tree. All right, back to the graphite powder. Love this stuff. Cardboard. Oh my gosh, I love the cardboard. So here goes. You're going to tap into your graphite powder You're going to get a lot loaded onto your, let's call it a brush, your cardboard brush. I'm going to load that thing up, and then you're going to pull some marks across your birch tree. Now, I would make them curved. Oopsie. I'm going to make them curved so I can trick the viewer into there being a roundness to the tree. So I'm showing volume with those curved lines. And I'm just going to add and add and add all my curved lines to get a nice texture going on. I'm actually trying to make one side of the tree a little darker than the other side of the tree, and that's what you might find in nature, where light is really on more on one side of the tree than the other, and you can mimic that in your drawing. You might want to also go back with an eraser and refine some of those curvy lines, just to really drive the point home. These are curved lines. This tree has volume. It's a nice round shape. Okay. You know how birch trees lose their branches and then they have all those little scars? Well, here's a tiny piece of cardboard, and I'm just dipping it into the graphite, and then I'm making a fast little twist. And that's where an old branch used to be. And it's a pretty convincing mark when you make it with the piece of cardboard. All right, we're pretty much at the end here. Check it out. This is a previous example. Look at the little grickly grass at the bottom and the different faraway hills and the texture of the birch tree. That one has a branch, something you can experiment with. Here's another example, same thing with the tall grass. Now look at these. That tree line is a little closer, and I was faking some of those trees to look a little more convincing. You can do that too. Lots of things to try. And here's the one we just made now. All the steps. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Birch Trees 101. Can't wait to see what you guys produce.